Hey, what's going on, guys? It's HawksNest here, back with another Call of Duty mobile video. So basically in today's video, I'm going to be giving you guys some tips and tricks for actually ranking. And what this video originally was going to be was basically episode 10 of Road to Legendary. But after editing it, I realized it was going to be like a 40-minute video, so what I decided to do is split it into two parts. This is essentially part one, where I tell you guys all of the things I learned across my journey from Rookie 1 to Legendary, while I was playing solo queue only on my phone and totally free to play, meaning I didn't spend any money on the account. And episode 10 will essentially be my gameplay and me showing you my before and after stats and all that from Rookie 1 to Legendary. But once again, this video more specifically will be covering my tips and tricks for both playing solo queue ranked as well as just playing ranked overall. It will start off with a couple generic tips just for the people that are a little bit newer, and as we go on, they will get a little bit more advanced all the way up until how you need to be thinking while you're actually playing. If you guys do enjoy this video, make sure to drop a like and a sub down below, especially if you want to see the next video, which once again will be episode 10 of Road to Legendary, where you guys can see all of my gameplay and my live thought process as I'm actually kind of explaining what you need to do as I'm actually doing it, and what not to do as well, because it's important to understand what not to do. But without further ado, let's just go ahead and get into the video. First things first is you definitely have to understand the meta, so you have to know which guns to use and which guns you shouldn't use. Just because obviously you could use any gun you wanted, but certain guns are definitely better than other guns at times, so it is really important to understand which weapons and which loadouts you should be using. This one's not super important, but I do think it is important to try to use the correct weapons at the time. So for me, at the time of recording this video, the S36 was super OP, so I decided to use that whenever I really felt like I needed to win a game. I would pull it out, and it was extremely helpful to do that. And also the Type 25 was really powerful at the time as well, so that was another primary gun that I was using. Another one is a little bit selfish because I am a YouTuber, but I also highly suggest watching YouTubers because you're going to learn a lot about the game without actually having to play the game by doing this. Like if you watch Ferg or Godsley Noah from YouTube, all these great players, you're going to learn a lot from their gameplay, so I highly suggest doing that if you want to learn something while you're not actually playing. Another thing is constantly improving your mechanics. You can always improve your movement, you can always improve stuff like that, so always be looking to improve things like that. And I also just wanted to mention that the first few tips are going to be a little bit more generic, and then we'll get into a little bit more specific things. Next thing is having the right sensitivity. I made sure to get the right sensitivity from the start, so episode 1 was me finding the right sensitivity if you guys wanted to check that out, but having the right sensitivity was very helpful. I also learned that when you play on an iPad versus a phone, you can actually play with a little bit lower sensitivity on an iPad because you have more screen space. But on a phone, to actually be able to like turn around and take fights that are really close range, I definitely felt like I had to have a higher sensitivity. So that was another thing I learned in terms of playing on a phone. Another thing is I really learned the value of having more fingers because you're able to do a lot more things at once. So typically I played 4 fingers on an iPad, and I did actually try to play 2 fingers on the phone for a little bit, and that was extremely difficult for me. So after comparing 2 and 4 fingers, I definitely really noticed that 4 fingers was a lot easier to be able to move around and do all kinds of cool stuff. So more fingers is definitely super helpful. Another thing that was super important for me was warming up. What I would do is go into like free-for-alls before I actually got into rank to just really get my gun skill honed in. And every single game matters because you want to be getting as much points as possible, and you don't want to be losing points. I highly recommend warming up in public matches and not ranked, because then you're actually going to be able to be a lot more time efficient. And once again, for me, warming up just looked like me going to like free-for-all matches, but I'm pretty sure free-for-all isn't in the game anymore, so just doing like TDM, hardpoint, domination, things like that will definitely help your gun skill. Get prepared for the ranked grind. Now, another thing that's super important that I will be talking about throughout this video is never blame or make excuses for things outside of your control. And after every single death or loss, look at what you could have done better and be very aware of that the next time that you play. Now, this was huge for me because what you guys are going to see in this video is I actually started to grind from Master 5 to Legendary. And throughout that very first session, what I noticed was every time I died, I would get super tilted, I'd get pissed off, I'd start blaming my teammates. Because obviously I was playing solo queue, so it was really easy for me to just be like, oh, bad teammates, that's why I'm losing. But literally as soon as I got out of this mindset and I decided to blame myself for every single loss and look at what I could have done better, I started to improve a ton. Just for comparison, the very first time I started going from Master 5 to Legendary, it was a 2-hour stream, and I gained 20 points throughout that entire stream where I was just constantly blaming things outside of my control. But then when I decided to stop the stream and come back the next day and just be more focused on my gameplay and what I could improve, we bumped that 20 points up to gaining 380 points in a 5-hour stream. Which, if you guys were curious, that means in the first stream we're gaining 10 points an hour, and in the second stream we're gaining 76 points an hour. So it was a dramatic increase in my gameplay as soon as I decided to be more positive and have a better mindset on what I could be doing and not blaming things outside of my control. And that is because the things outside of your control, obviously you can't control, so there's no point in perseverating or overly focusing on that. and instead focusing your energy on what you could have improved in that game. Because obviously if you have terrible teammates, you're not going to be able to fix that, but what you can do is try your best to carry that game, and that is actually something that is within your control. Another thing is when you get mad or tilted, either step away just because you can give yourself some time to cool off, or don't allow yourself to tunnel vision on the tilt. I say that a lot in this video as well, but in that first stream, what I really noticed was every time something bad happened, I would just really focus on that and make excuses for it. And then the next game, I would be multitasking because in my brain, I was thinking of like just me being mad, and I was trying to think, oh, I had to prove myself. So I'd like run around trying to get as many kills as possible. And I would die a ton to that, and I just wasn't playing smart. My brain was really clouded with what I should be doing versus what I was doing at the time. So it's really important to just totally forget about the past games and the tilt. And when I say that, I don't mean forget about the mistakes that you made, but instead be more excited to fix those mistakes in the next games as opposed to being really mad and things like that. Just try to have a overall positive mindset, and that will go a lot farther. Another thing is don't be afraid to take breaks. Negative points means more games that you're actually going to have to play to reach your goal. And obviously games take time, and time is something that you won't get back. So if you do notice yourself going on a really big tilt, step away for a sec, go get a glass of water, go eat some food, do whatever you need to, but don't be afraid to go take breaks. Don't think, okay, I had a terrible game, I'm just going to keep playing and keep playing and keep playing. Unless you're really trying to train yourself to get out of a tilt on command. So basically whenever you're getting pissed off, if you're trying to teach yourself how to just get out of it and get back into the gameplay, then I highly recommend taking breaks. Because as I said, I was playing for 2 hours and doing terrible, and what I decided to do is step away, get a good night's sleep, and come back, and as you can tell, the results were dramatically better. Another thing is be aware of your teammates and what they're doing. Sometimes they'll make good decisions, sometimes they'll make bad decisions, but if you can kind of play around your team, that will be really big for your success. And what I mean by that is if your team is lacking in something in a certain game mode, try to make up for that as much as possible. Like obviously, if your team is just constantly dying in TDM, then there's no way you're going to win unless you frag out of your mind. Or in domination, if your team just isn't capping or anything, like going on the points and playing objective, obviously you're gonna have to try to fill in that void. And in search and destroy, if they're doing certain things, try to play with them. So for example, if it's a 2v1, it's you and your teammate versus one enemy, and that teammate is rushing, it's probably a better idea to stay close to them than go do your own thing and think you're way better. Because then all of a sudden, say your teammate dies and then you're left with a 1v1, that's going to be a lot harder to play than if you are with your teammate and you're doing a 2v1. Now, obviously, this doesn't mean be stupid like your teammates are being stupid, but just try to really be smart about how you're playing around and with your teammates. And obviously communicate as much as you possibly can, but if you are solo queuing, that can be difficult. But you could definitely use the in-game chat to communicate when necessary, or if you're playing with teammates, another thing is communication is super important. Another thing is if you're solo queuing, have a playstyle that allows you to rely on yourself a little bit more. So just kind of, if you're solo queuing, always treat the game as if you are 1v5ing and think, if I'm 1v5ing, what would I do to win? Because in solo queue, you just can't rely on teammates. And if you go into the game solo queuing thinking that you can rely on your teammates, you're going to lose a lot more. But if you go into the game relying on yourself and thinking about what you can do, then your teammates can never disappoint you. They can only impress you with what they do. They can literally never disappoint you if you're used to doing a 1v5 situation. Another tip that's a little bit more specific with S&D is keep track of people's positions or enemies' positions. Whenever you know where an enemy is through the minimap, bomb plants, trip mine, callouts, anything like that, always keep a mental note of where they were last seen, just so you have a general idea of where the enemy players could be. And a little tip for TDM is if you're ever doing bad, definitely camp. One thing I noticed when I played TDM is whenever I would kind of start doing bad, I would feel like I have to go get kills, and I'll just constantly rush and die, rush and die, rush and die. And I feel like a lot of people do this in TDM, and that's why they lose so often, is because you think the mode is to get kills, whereas that's not really your objective. You have two objectives inside of TDM, and both are equally important. First one is obviously get kills, and the second one is don't die. So if you're failing to get kills, then you need to try to make up in the other department as much as you can. So if you're not really killing well, then you have to go ahead and not die. So personally, I have a rule for myself. If I'm ever going negative, I camp and try to get as many kills as I can. Then I'll decide to get a little bit more aggressive. But I try to always keep my TDM KD above a 1, which means I never have more deaths than I have kills. And again, this is really easy if you just decide to camp every time you feel like you're going negative. So if you're at like 8 kills and 8 deaths, then slow down and focus your playstyle on just camping and getting easier kills than being really aggressive. This is a extremely important tip, but obviously if your teammates are dying a ton, you're gonna have to overcompensate, as I said before, and just rush a ton of kills. But if you are playing with some players that you actually know are pretty decent, if they all understand this rule of never dying more than they get kills, it's a lot easier to win TDM matches. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to drop a like and a sub down below, especially if you guys want to see future tips and trick videos. And with all of that being said, I will see you guys later. Peace.
Enemy contact!
Let's go! Let's go, dude! Oh my god!